This episode is again sponsored by our friends over at Epic Hope, who are doing some great work in the local area around Wigan and West Lancashire area. They're a suicide prevention and intervention charity. And they do the Hope Harbour sessions, which is Mondays 6pm till 8pm at Robin Park Arena, and Wednesdays 6pm till 8pm. Whether you're struggling with mental health issues or suicidal thoughts, if you've been historically suicidal, or if you've lost someone through suicide, or even just feel that need to talk and share your feelings with peers and support and friendly volunteers, the Harbours are a safe place, and you'll be made very, very welcome by them down there. If it can give you any bit of advice, go to their website, which is epichope.org.uk. There's loads more information than I can give you on there. And also, the social pages are shared on our social pages too. So just want to say a big thank you to the guys down there again, doing some great work in the local community, and it's a great cause. So thank you very much. Right, okay, so I'm back at Cantilever Park with the first chairman on the show, Toby. Brilliant to see you.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, I know. Have you got my medal?
It's in the post, mate, I think.
Right, yeah, thought it might be. I'll have to just settle for a Guinness then.
Okay.
But, first and foremost, congratulations. So, we're 2 weeks later now, after the promotion, but obviously, if you talk us through it, it's been a long road to get where you've got, but eventually it's paid dividend.
It's been since the final whistle last Monday. It's been absolutely non-stop phone, well wishes, of course, and which is overwhelmed by the amount of messages that I'd received, from all across the game, and the morning after the hard work begins, and it's been a really tough season. It's been a really long season. Small squad, sometimes 3 subs at matches. We sort of classed it as a small squad revolution. Yeah, that we'd started. So I think the tightness and the togetherness in the group, and you know some of the lads, don't you? So yeah. I think that's got us over the line, and just the hard work that the staff's put in.
Yeah,
they worked really hard on small resources to get us over. But I think the togetherness of the group is what got us over in the end.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about it in the past. I mean, and I've said it before on here, about sort of the family vibe here, but it is a family vibe because while we're even doing this, Lisa's over there doing the hard work, and but you haven't you? You've got Freya and Ollie involved in the club as well. They've been ingrained in it. Yes. Their life, haven't they?
Yeah, I said after I was speaking to Radio Merseyside after the game, after the final. When I said to Neil, I mentioned that daughter was 3 when we landed in 17 now. Yeah. So the sacrifice off the fields, is huge. Yeah. Lisa's here every day and involved in it, and myself and the kids as well. I mean, Freya even works here match day. Yeah. Now, so they're proper ingrained in it, and I think it helps sometimes. There's just us, and James Gordon does great work for us. So it's a really small group that run it, but I think that's maybe helped us this year. You push yourself that bit more when you've the job list is yours to own and manage, and there's not a long table of people here, so decision making's quite swift. And I think that can help you sometimes, and it certainly has this season.
Yeah, I think like you say, probably having the smaller squad and just builds that sort of tight-knit group, doesn't it? Probably using the same sort of 15, 16 players throughout the season, But one thing I'll say is just taking you back a little bit. So for this journey that yourself and Mark Beasley and Dave Raven, all the staff here have been on. It was a funny one, really, because you were in a position which I wanted to speak about as a chairman, where when Paul Carden left to go to Telford, and then you made the decision, because I know there was a lot of interest, you made the decision to stick with Mark. Would you mind talking us through what, at that time after Paul went, what was going on?
It was a really tough time, to be honest, because it's, the way the news broke sort of didn't help. So of course we knew what was going on. Obviously, we'd allowed Telford permission to speak to Paul, and he was really torn whether he should go or not. Decided to go, and we'd sort of scheduled everything was sort of scheduled and planned. So after the Mickle away game, we were going to announce it about 7:30 that night. And Paul told the changing room at full time at Mickle away, by 5:15, half of non-league knew.
Yeah.
Because, obviously, players talk. And it generally wasn't ours, to be fair. It was a lot of the Mickle players it just spread like fire. So we had to make the decision right there and then to announce it.
Yeah.
So I rang James and said, listen, we need to get this out now, because it's out there. And we just announced at the time that Paul had been given permission to speak to a National League North club. We didn't name the club, even though we sort of knew it was, we knew it was sort of a done deal. And it was a difficult time because I hadn't really spoken to Mark about it. Which, when I look back on things, that's maybe something I probably should have done a bit earlier. And I didn't. So obviously Mark was in a really difficult place because he obviously wasn't going. I hadn't really had a conversation about, are you going with Paul? Because normally manager goes with the assistant goes with the manager, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But with hindsight, when you look back, you're thinking, well, he probably wouldn't have gone because of the job that Bees does.
Yeah.
So he doesn't allow him to travel to Telford. So when I look back, probably could have handled that a little bit better. But it just, when it came out, everything was just 100 mile an hour.
Yeah. I remember. We were on the coach, weren't we?
No one knew which direction to go, and really just wanted to. At that time, I just wanted the announcement out there, so we could just move on.
Yeah.
And then spoke to Bees, and and I basically said, do you want to run with it?
Yeah.
If you want to run with it, it's yours to run with. And it's always a tough time because the amount of interest you get.
Yeah.
A lot of people do want to manage you.
Yeah.
It's a known thing, and so we cracked on with that, and then B sort of started getting his staff together, and the transitional phase was sort of extended really, because even though Bees has been here up until that point, he came with Paul in October 2016. When Paul left, only then did he discover really that Bees as a manager in his own right, it's a completely different manager to what Paul is.
Yeah.
They're two completely different people as regards on the pitch. So that took me some adjusting, to be fair. And then of course Dave Raven came in as assistant. Dave was a player here, and had retired from the game.
Yeah.
Playing wise, to come and take up his coaching position. So that was a long transitional phase that for me to get used to, how they worked, even though we'd been here a while.
Yeah.
And the good thing is he knows the club inside out because he'd been here a while. So I think the phase for Bees was probably maybe a little bit easier than it was for me personally. But we got through that, and I think the hard work that them guys have done. It took 18 months to put the squad together and add to the players in the summer that he wanted, which we did. We went out there and we got them, and they've worked really hard, and the reward for that was last Monday.
Yeah, and you look at the team, because I think it's fair to say over the sort of the recent decade, we'd say, Warrington have always had strongly competitive sides, but this side, I came 2 weeks before the season finished, and I think it was either Marsk or Morpeth that you played, and we had a pint in the bar afterwards, and I remember saying, he's just more steely, like than last season. Like he weren't particularly good on the day, but they got the job done, and it was 2-0 clean sheet. Thank you very much. See you later. Move on to the next one. And I think just with that, I looked at the back there, and you had Tom Hannigan and Evan just looked so matured and assured, really. But then you looked at it and you thought, you know, the wide players, Bees had options off the bench, whether it was Isaac or Connor Woods or Luke Duffy, whichever sort of winger it was. There's different options, and I said the same to Dave Raven when we had him on. You look at Mossy and you look at Jordan Buckley, the poles apart as players.
Different players.
But for a centre half, that must be a nightmare. Like, you know, you've dealt with one for 60 minutes and the other comes on.
You see him one with him.
Yeah.
But I think that's helped. You know, we talked about the small numbers of the squad, but I think if anything, that's put pressure on the lads coming off the bench.
Yeah.
Because they know they have to perform. You know, they can't come off and, you know, just come on and have a run of the mill 20 minutes, half an hour. They've got to give something. Yeah. They've got to contribute, and I think every one of them did that. You know, I sided one or two, maybe someone's coming and not sort of affected the game as you wanted him to, which you get sometimes. More often than not, the subs did affect the game, and you know, got us over the line in some games. I mean, look at Isaac. I think there's a stat put out a few weeks back. I think Matt Turner mentioned it to me that 6 of Isaac's 9 goals had come from 87 minutes on.
Wow.
And I think one of them was 84 as well. So
well, he scored in that Morpeth game. I think that was about I think Morpeth or Marsk, bottom end. And he scored, I think that was about 89th minute to make it 2-0.
Yeah, so, you know, proper impact player for the bench, and like you see, you know, that we've needed that this year.
Do you know when you're saying like the players pushing each other and stuff like that, but the teams pushing each other as well. And you'd probably say yourself and South Shields have pushed each other over the years, but has there any been other, like, you know, this season where you thought?
No. Well, it's always been Shields, really, because, you know, if you go back, whilst Monday was our 3rd consecutive playoff final, you know, even if you sort of take the COVID years out, that's our 3rd consecutive playoff final, because we had Scarborough, the defeat at Scarborough, then the COVID, and then before that, we had the Super Playoff final against Kings Lynn. Yeah. That's after actually winning the league playoffs at Shields. Yeah. But people sometimes forget that the season before we got knocked out in the semi-finals by Grantham. Right. So, you know, we've done 4 consecutive set of playoffs. So as regards the plan and what we've done, you know, we've sort of tweaked a little bit each time and just sort of fell short each time. But we stuck with what we think's worked, and, you know, finally got it over this time. But you know, to do 3 consecutive playoffs, you know, 4 playoffs in all, it's just a sign of, you know, how strong the club is. And
I always say, like, it's different to other clubs. Other clubs and other managers will just sign. Oh, if he's a good player, we'll just sign him. But I think, and I don't want to sound cliche here, but it's very true at this football club. You've got to be a certain type of character as well, haven't you, to be signed here?
Yeah, you've got to be. You know, you've got to understand how the club works, and come and be a part of what the club is, and join the journey of where it's going. You know, quite a few clubs I've spoke to, you know, directors and chairmen at clubs lower down the pyramid this week, and they're all asking, you know, you're in the playoffs every year, you know, what's the things that you've done? And the 2 main things for me are you have to sign, you have to have the right manager. Yeah. You know, you'll have discussions and all that kind of things, but you've got to sign the right management team. You know, you can't just sign a manager for the sake of just having one, because in turn then you have to sign the right players. And I know that sounds blatantly obvious of a way to get there, but it is. You know, if you look at teams that will have 3 and 4 managers in the same season, you know, how have they arrived at that decision, and how did that come about in the first place? Unless he's left to go to somewhere else. If you've dismissed 3 or 4 managers in the season, something's been fundamentally wrong in your summer. And then you'll get, you know, some people are signing players on unbelievable wages for this level, but they're there for the money. They're not there to take the team where it needs to go. Everyone knows we're not the biggest payers in the league by any stretch. We're just not. But the players we've got here because they want to be here and they believe in where it's going. Yeah. You know, and that's the same for, once you get that unit and we keep it small, we got offered players all season, but we didn't take them because it had to be the right person for the changing room, and it wasn't. They wouldn't have had him. They would have, we would have ended up getting rid of him. So it does have to be the right person, because you always look at what you challenge. They look at Shields. They've been full time for I don't know how many seasons now, and they've finally done it this year. But they, to get there, they had to change their whole roster of players.
Yeah.
They went for they've gone straight away from. I think the main bulk of the squad was like released pros off 2 and 3 year deals.
Yeah.
Whereas when Phillips had ever come in, he'd gone very experienced.
Yeah.
You've got your lads with 200 or 300 football league games under you. So they've always been the team that's pushed us, because it's always been us or Shields.
Yeah.
It's like there. The fans there. It's a great,
right on top here,
and it's a great place to go, because we've had some great wins.
Great
there.
place to go and win, innit?
Yeah. We've had some great wins there. When we go upstairs for a drink after the game, and the fans are always talking to you, and the great air. So they've always been not an obstacle.
Do you give you credit where it's due? Actually, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
And it's been a great battle with them over the season, because that you've got to try and put a squad together of hungry players that want to get somewhere.
Yeah.
Because you're up against the likes.
They're like the benchmark, aren't they? You've got to get to level par on them, haven't you?
Next season we'll be playing them again, but it'll be a different kind of thing this year. We'll want to win.
Yeah.
But the team that'll be pushing us this year, because we're into a new division, it's likely going to be sort of any team that's below us, because we're going to be fighting to be as competitive as we can. It does have to be the right kind of player.
How does the plan change, or does it change in terms of, obviously, as I've known, you've had something in place for this division, so we've always known sort of what you need to be up there competing at it. How does that change now, like going into the National League? Is it whether it's financially or whether it's infrastructure-wise? Well, it's still financially, that, isn't it? What's the things that are sort of in place for that, Tob?
I think this year, it's going to be a really, really tough year for us. We need probably 80 to 100 k's worth of work doing on the ground, which we knew. So it's a case of us trying to retain as many players as we can, and add to that, players that want the level, and want to do well in level, bit like we've done previously. They want to join the journey, and we'll try and be as competitive as we can, but it will be tough. I think we've got this season, we've got some great venues to go to, got a load of new people to meet. So, if we go to those new venues, enjoy the season, welcome new fans here that have never been here before, and new clubs, learn the new rules, get the ground done, and if we can stay in and get a decent mid-table position, I think that'll be a really good season for us.
Yeah, most definitely. And how does it sort of, you obviously, I'm sure yourself and Mark will be like planning for pre-season and everything now, but like in terms of next season aiming for that mid-table finish, surely Mark, as we know, surely Mark's going to keep it as competitive, but if he gets into that, surely he's going to be wanting it.
And like all managers do, they'll want playoffs at the minimum, and the players will. And if that comes around, if we catch people cold and we have a good run and we manage to snatch a playoff position, because historically that's all we've ever planned to do. This season we'd overachieved massively, because we only ever plan to get fifth. That's all we ever do. We plan to get fifth and then just be involved in the playoffs. That we've always done that. If you look at historically where we've finished, we've always finished fourth or fifth. I think we had a season where we finished third, so we've always finished fourth or fifth, and we've always been the away team in the playoffs. Whereas this year, we had that 22 game unbeaten run, pretty much out of nowhere, and we'd never planned to finish second. It's always nice to get control of the playoff situation, but we'd never planned for second. So I suppose this year, if we manage to get seventh and you manage to get an eliminator playoff, It'll be great to have. I'm not sure I'll have any of this left to do it.
Clutching at it.
Yeah. But it'd be great to be involved in it, and if we are, we'll have to work, to get to it. If it gets us, let's enjoy it. And
yeah,
I haven't got a plan for that if it happens, so I'll have to come up with one.
Yeah. do you know, just sort of like going back over the ages? So like in your time, how many managers have you had in your 14 years? So like working directly under yourself.
5, I think.
What's the biggest? Has anything changed? Because a chairman's got to manage his manager, hasn't he? Basically, in that relationship. How have them relationships differed between each one's?
I think it's probably due. Well, obviously every manager's got his level.
Yeah.
Managers are the same as players in that regard.
Yeah.
A player will always have a level that you can play to, and a manager will have a level he can manage to.
Yeah.
And that's what I found, over the season, when you look back and you think, well, I made that decision because he wasn't ready for the level. It's happened with all the ones that have been and gone. And people can say, well, how do you know Mark's National League North level? He's never managed at that level. Well, we'd never played in it either.
Yeah.
So it's brand new. Whereas historically we'd been in the MPL North or West, whichever it was at the time, and then we were in the Premier for 5-6 seasons. When they do have a level. They'll attract that certain kind of player, and you can tell generally whether it's right or wrong.
I think it's interesting to note that, like, if you say you had dismissed a manager, well, in your time, at the club, there's not been one that's like gone past you where you can say, oh well, to be fair, you've proved me wrong. You've ended up going that way. They have sort of been at the level that they've been at. They've
always stayed at a level or below, or in some circumstances, not been involved in football at all.
Yeah.
It's been justified.
Yeah.
Justifiable changes and the right ones, I think.
And I wanted to run past you because, which I might as well say on here, I went for my first team managers interview the other day. And when I speak to you, it's refreshing because you've obviously said, like, basically about putting things in place for your manager to then go and manage and that. But I went for an interview with the North West County Second Division club, who obviously because we've had the conversation. But for the interests of the podcast, I won't say who it is. But they're very local to where I live, so you'll probably know. County Second Division, right? So number 1. So it goes in there, 4 people. Director of football in the county's second division. Director of football called me as I went to sit down and shook hands, said, "How are you, sunshine?" Which I thought was a bit like condescending, a little bit, like maybe because of my age. Anyway, as it goes on, I thought it was going quite well. I was telling Lisa before, I thought it was going quite well, and then all of a sudden the director of football says, what's your preferred formation? I said, well, it's usually either 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3, but it doesn't really matter. It depends what you've got available to you. And he said, he said, nobody's coming in, and this is the way he said it, nobody's coming into this fucking football club unless they play 4-4-2. So that was I thought, Christ, this is a baptism of fire. And I was between two things, and had spoken to a couple of people afterwards. I was between saying, like, well, thank you very much for your time, see you later. But I didn't. I saw it out. But I actually thought it's a bit of a sad indictment, really, because I said this in the thing. What is the point in me, becoming the manager? If I'm going to be the manager, I want to recruit, pick the formation, everything. And then I'll be accountable. If results are poor, I'm accountable. If results are good, I'm accountable for that as well. But I don't want to stand there and do 4-4-2 for somebody just to...
So 4 people interview you. For me, that's 3 too many.
Right, yeah.
For a start off.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the director of football thinks. Chairman makes the decision.
Yeah.
Or he should be. And it's probably a little bit different at Warrington, because I'm at every training session.
Yeah.
You know, I never miss.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so ingrained in everything, from pies in the snack bar to bench wear to
Them floodlights that we used to have at the training ground,
everything.
stuff like that.
You know,
yeah.
and because you're so, I'll never ever question what formation manager plays, because I'm at training, I can see who's doing well and who's not. You know, and sometimes I'll say, "How's such and such a player getting on?" And Bees will turn around, "Well, it's this, well, it's that." Well, I spoke to him. You know, there's always something, but I don't think I've never ever questioned a formation or a starting lineup.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's the manager's job. You know, it's a result. It's a results-driven business. So you should only question the results.
Yeah.
You shouldn't question what goes into making them.
Yeah.
Ever. In my opinion, you know, you hear horror stories. Was it Tony Fernandez, the QPR?
Oh yeah, I remember him.
Pick the team and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. You know, and there was a phase at the club where, you know, I'd signed a number of players for myself.
Yeah.
But it was, you know, that's when we'd sort of going through a big transitional period, where we'd had put some investment in and we were trying to get it to a certain place. But
to give the manager a basis, basically.
Yeah, to try and to give them more tools to do the job. So, I don't get you being asked about your formation, because obviously, what if you turn up and the pitch is
exactly
a foot high and you've got to send it. You know,
I spoke to a couple of people about it, and of course, if you had two flying forwards, then there's no reason why you might not say play 4-4-2 or whatever. But I just found it so weird. And then after it, I spoke to a certain someone, and they said, the manager's already been lined up anyway. You're thinking, why waste people's time? It's just like, it's just daft, isn't it? But it's refreshing to hear the other side of it, and that's why I wanted to put the scenario to you, because you've been in them situations where
that's what I say. It's results driven, so question the results, not what goes into it. You know, we had a period sort of November. We had a bit of a purple patch, but you know what we'll do is we'll just all meet up, get in a room, and we'll talk through the results. And we lost that one. Where do we think that was wrong? And when you reflect back on the game, could be a refereeing decision.
Yeah.
You know, it could be an injury. You know, could be that was a game where we didn't come out proper for the second half, and you know they've got a deflected equaliser and it just knocked the wind out of our sails. There can be all little kinds of things to it, but you know, we'll always, off the back of any sort of period of not good results, we'll sit down and we'll go through each game.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what we did. You know, November time, and then see Mark and Dave have tweaked a couple of things, and then you know, lo and behold, before you know it, you're 22 games unbeaten. Yeah. So you know, sometimes it's
funny as well, isn't it? Because sometimes you just need in your tough times, you need that support, don't you? And obviously in that situation, it's massively helped. Yeah. You know,
you've got to back it. You know, if you appoint them, you've got to back people.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a bit like you know, it's like place. You know, it's player selection. I think we've always said here that you know we don't drop players; they play their way out of the lineup.
Yeah.
You know, and the same can be said for everyone involved at the club.
Yeah. And I've got a few questions that I want to slip in, and then we'll do a little bit on have a little bit of a chat about the future and stuff. But one of the questions I've had off Anton Deck here. So I was saying to Lisa, they were they're after a new podium or something, or commentary gantry or something. So that's what they said. Are you going to put an appropriate commentary gantry for the National League North standard?
Foolishly, a couple of seasons ago, I agreed to put a new press area in if we ever got to the National League North.
Right.
And now we have they constantly remind me. But I'm a man of my word.
Yeah.
And I always deliver. I always deliver. So I'll deliver it. There's no question. They just need to be patient.
So they're getting their wish, and then there was a chap on Twitter as well who mentioned, obviously, he mentioned something about the 3G actually, but I think he was more on about the adjustments to the ground.
Yeah, for what we need. So we've got a grade 3. We need a grade 2. So we'll need 3 additional turnstiles, which we've got a location for them. But the big thing is we need a proper segregated away end. And when we can segregate now at a push, but it's just not inviting, and it's not a good day out for either team. So we want to get that right, because we want the match day experience to be as good as it can be for visiting fans, and especially when you're going into a division where some fans have never been in their lives before. So we need to get that right. So we'll need to look at trying to build a ground within a ground, if you like, that needs to hold at least 500 people. So we'll need standing area, trying to get some seats in there. It'll need toilets, snack bar, a bar facility. It's a really big task, a really, really big task. So we're on with it. We've sort of been done some measuring up at the ground and that. So it will have to be at the 3G end, because it's services related. At the other end, if you want to call it the home end, the stand where the big shed end is, there's no electric down there, and the drainage round there, it's on the far side of the houses at the end of the ground, so it's too far away. So it's going to have to go in at what we call the 3G end, and utilise that green space there.
Yeah, and that'll be so. Am I right in saying you get a bit of time, don't you?
We do. You get to achieve a grade 2 in full. It's the 29th, 31st of March, 24. But because it's a segregated area, we want to try and get that, up and running as quick as we can. And don't get me wrong, because there's no history of anything between fans, at all, really.
Yeah.
So there'll be some weeks where you pick a couple of teams, say Brackley and Alfreton. So your Brackley and Alfreton home games, there's no real need to segregate them, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But when you get an all-ticket fixture, which we will this year, there'll be a number of those.
Probably like your Chester, your Southport, won't it?
Scunthorpe, Hereford probably. Teams that travel really well. So, probably Darlington. So you'll have to segregate those, and not because there's any ill feeling between the fans. It's just it'd be an easier day to manage. When your ground's got over 2,000 people in, it's really, really difficult to manage, and because you'd have such a small team running it, you try to take the workload off, and the easier way to do it is if you're operating in 2 well-managed areas.
Yeah. And as we're looking at the minute, pitch is looking good, but we had a chat before, and you're on with that as well at the minute, aren't you?
It's getting done Thursday, but unfortunately for it, it's had an infestation in it most of the season of chafer grubs, which for all the chafer grub know-alls out there, they'll know that they're due to hatch in a couple of weeks. So we'll need to get some treatments down and hope they're successful, because if we don't, we'll have the same problem next September, which has been a nightmare for us this year.
Do you not think it's because people who might turn up, there might be an away fan and they turn up and they'll know Toby Macormac on a match day, being the chairman, being the face of the club and stuff like that. But I know you're obviously on more of a personal level, and we'd turn up for training here or whatever, and you'd be marking the pitch, or you'd be putting floodlights up and stuff like that. So I just wanted to say that, because I think sometimes people do see this, not just you, just any chairman, but this vision of you being sat upstairs and eating sandwiches, don't they? And no. It's just not that, is it?
Only time I do that is about 5:10.
Yeah.
I only get a chance. No, I think I sort of alluded to earlier. I think to get where you want to get to, and get it and do it right, you've got to have a hand in absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Because then when you do have to make a decision on anything, I've always said, any decision that you make has to be informed and factual. So if you're making your decisions based on being informed, being involved in it, and factual, because you're saying, well, I've done the job and I'm doing it, so I know that I'm right. So as long as your decisions are based on those two, more often than not, your decisions will be right. I like to think that, over the time that I've been here, one or two sort of wrong decisions, but aside of that, they've generally been right. You know, when you look back, and I think that only happens because you're so involved in the day-to-day running of it.
Yeah, and I had a question from a fellow chairman, so I think you'll quite like this one. It was Tony's ever owner at Prescott Cables, and he said, and I'm sure there's a few, but it'd be great from a chairman's perspective, because we've had it off players and managers, but from a chairman's perspective, what is the worst thing in football for you? Like, what's something, I think along the lines of something that you could change, do you know?
I could change in the game. It's a tough one.
That, and I've thrown it on you, haven't I?
Yeah, it's a tough question, that.
Because you know what my one was? My one was the playoffs. I'm with bees, and I think the neutral ground thing.
The neutral ground thing. Yeah, that could be, because obviously we suffered at the hands of an artificial surface at Scarborough away last year, which certainly was to their advantage. But then you'll always get people saying, well, they finished higher than you, so they should get home advantage in that. But I do think, if you look at the last Monday, we could have sold that out twice.
Yeah.
You could have easily had 5,000 or 6,000 people in somewhere.
Yeah.
So why not hold it? And you don't have to go to a league ground. There's some great grounds. Look at Southport.
Yeah.
You could have held the playoff final at Southport all day long, and it would have been a great day. It's a great ground. So you could have held it there. So yeah, that could be one thing. I think if anything, there's I think the big challenge at the game at the minute is obviously wages. Wages are spiraling out of control, but it's not. People turn around and say, "Oh, well, it's they're getting paid X amount above and all that." The issue isn't above with wages; it's below.
Yeah.
Some of the cash that I was speaking to a chairman of a Step 5 club just before I came on, and he's lost his star player, his star forward. He's gone to another Step 5 club.
Right. So it's
for the cash.
Yeah.
And when you look at how much he's been paid, I know forwards 2 divisions above that aren't on that.
Yeah.
So. And I get why they do it. I get that they go in there. It's good money. They don't have to leave their own town.
Yeah.
Wherever they live. They can be back in their house at R5 when some people are on coaches and not getting home till 9, 10 o'clock at night for £100 a week less. So that's a really difficult sort of thing. So if I could change that, I would. But you can't, because that's what drives some players, and that's how some clubs are driven. But yeah, probably playoff scenario. Probably agree with that one.
Yeah. I just often think, and like I say, I've mentioned it before, but I'm all for it. So say for instance, somebody finished second and you finish fifth. I'm all for the semi-final. You've got to go and play. Yeah. But I just think the playoff. It is. They call it the playoff final. So it's a final. If you're in a final, it should be like a neutral ground, and I agree with you. I think if you can do that, then do it. But
in fact, I tell you what I'd change.
Go on.
Actually, it's just coming to my head there when you're talking about finals. I would change the Senior Cup matches.
Right.
I think the Senior Cup games plonked in January, February, March are just a nightmare, because if you draw a team further down a pyramid who's pitching great, it gets cancelled, and then, before you know it, you could be 3 or 4 consecutive weeks not played it, then your league games get moved because
that takes priority.
For me, county cup competitions should be a pre-season competition up until the quarterfinals, or at least the semi-finals.
Yeah.
They'd be played at, they'd be competitive pre-season games. You'd probably get more crowds in for them than the 100 you get on a wet Tuesday night in January.
Do you know what? It's a great shout.
Yeah. So, your Senior Cup competitions should be pre-season until the semi-final.
I like that. I like the sound of that, actually. I think that's a great shout, to be honest. Yeah. Bloody hell, Toby, you might be starting something here. Yeah. But how's it work with? Because you're on the Northern Premier League board, aren't you?
The Northern Premier League, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when you like obviously go into National League North now,
Yep.
can you still remain on the?
Not directly, no.
No.
I would need to stand down. I think you can have independence on, I think. But I'll see how things go.
Yeah.
I'll see how things go, and I need to find my feet in the National League North.
Yeah. How's that been like? Because I know we see the likes of Mark Harris's and I forget the lady's name who's involved and stuff like that. But for all of us that are sort of interested in Northern Premier League football, how is it sort of mixing in them circles? Of the
it's good, it's a good environment to be in, because what you're doing there is you hold that position on the board, and your job is to help the other 81 clubs.
Yeah.
That's what you're there to do. When things get passed around the table and you're making decisions on it, you're not making it on for your own club's benefit. Mm-hmm. It's about the other 81 clubs in the competition, regardless of where they are. And that's how you've got to think, and you've got to deal with that. And at the same time, in improving the league and maintaining the league standards, because if you look at the complaints of some of the other leagues at different steps of how poorly ran they are, and I think if you look at when they changed the pyramid through all the restructure, the Northern Premier League was awarded another division.
Yeah.
You don't just get awarded a division of 22 clubs. You have to apply to it through the FA, and the look how your leagues ran and all that kind of thing. So the NPL won that league based on how it's ran. It gets a lot of flack on socials and complaints and stuff, but it's not easy to help run 81 other businesses.
Yeah.
Which is what you're trying to do. And Angie Firth, who's the league secretary, and the general manager does an absolute sterling job of doing that, because you've got to keep clubs in check as well.
Yeah.
Because some do need help.
Yeah.
Some don't want it.
I was going to say, when certain clubs have come into this league, and even stuff like the Northern Premier League sponsors that go on the shirts, stuff like that. Like, have you found difficulties with clubs?
Yes, some are, because especially when through the restructure, clubs were getting pushed up from step 5 to step 4 when they weren't ready for it. It wasn't for them, and you speak to chairmen at some of those clubs that have gone back down. They can't wait to go back down to step 5, because there's been a realisation quite quickly that I tell you what, we're not ready for this yet. And the restructure probably pushed some clubs up that didn't really want to be there, because of course you got dispensation on your ground grade where you could come up on a grade 5, and you're only giving clubs 2 years to go from a 5 to a 4 or a 3.
Yeah.
So you're asking them to invest a massive amount of cash in their infrastructure for something they might not need, because they could only be in it a year.
Yeah.
So that was a difficult time for clubs, like I say, because some clubs don't want the help.
No.
Or they don't come down, and the only time they'll come down on clubs hard is if some of the simple stuff like just submitting things on time.
Yeah.
Clubs won't submit it. Sometimes they just don't want to.
Yeah.
Because you do get clubs like that.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to move on to my questions. So, I've got a few decent ones, I think, but number one.
Who are they off first?
Well, these are mine.
All right.
Number one. What has there ever been one time where it's been like a really tough decision to? Because we know chairmen are in the position of hiring and firing, and ultimately that they have to do. Has there ever been a situation where it's been like, this one's tough, but I've got to make a decision in the interest of the club? Or have they been warranted?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, people say it's like working for a North Korean dictator, which sometimes it is. I'm not the easiest person to work with. I can be very demanding, and it's pretty much yes or no. There's no grey areas with me. It's dead black and white. It's dead open and honest. That it is what it is. And I won't have anything outside of that. I haven't got time for it. But not normally, no, because if I have got a really big decision to make, if somebody has to go, then the facts will be there. You know, more often than not, it's if you look back, you know, when Stu and Lee Smith went, we were 10 games into the Prem, and that's still to this day is my biggest learning curve here. You know, the season before, I think we'd smashed every league record that existed.
Yeah, you had the highest points tally.
Highest points, highest goals.
Yeah.
You know, I think Kieran Cleaney got 46 goals that year.
I think it still stands that. I might be wrong.
I think it does.
I don't think anyone's done it by that.
Smashed a stack of records, you know, and won the league at a canter. And you think that you go up with that unit and you think, do well here.
Yeah.
10 games in, we were all over the place, and I just knew I had to make a change, and that's when Paul came in.
Yeah.
Prior to that, Sean Reid was here. Of course, I got a lot of stick for the Sean Reid change, even to the point where someone actually stopped me in Morrison's once and said, "I hope you get cancer and die."
Really?
Yeah. Because of course he'd built such a big platform for himself. You know, that's what it turned into. It turned into the Sean Reid show, and it wasn't about, you know, I'm not bothered about that. You know, because the bigger platform you put yourself on, you know, you'll fall from a higher spot. And I decided that the direction I wanted to take the club in at that time, I just didn't believe that, because I knew we were going to win the league that year.
Yeah,
you know,
you can smell it, can't you, when you see?
You can smell it when you look in the changing room and you see the characters in there. You know, I could have managed that team over the line that year. And people got short memories. They forget that you know, Sean had a medical condition that year, and he only actually managed 20 games that year.
Right.
You know, the other 21 were done by Stuart and Lee, so we only did half a season. So when it got to what I think might have been just after Christmas, it was a lot later. It was like February, March, and I just thought, do you know what? I'm looking at next season, and I just think I need to do things different. I'm not quite sure what yet. I know I'll get it over the line. It's only fair to give Stu and Lee a go.
Yeah.
So they did, you know what I did, and then I decided to change it again. And
how did that go with him? Was it, if you don't mind me asking, how did it go? So you know you want to make the change. You backed up with your decision. How did it sit? That was it.
Not very well.
No,
it never does. It never does. You know, when Joey Dunn was the first managerial change, you know, Joey didn't take that well, which, you know, I understand. You know, people doesn't like. I think he won Manager of the Month on the Monday, and I let him go on the Wednesday.
Wow.
But you know, when you look back at the run of form there, I think we had something like 64 points after so many games, flying. I think we won 2 out of 16 or something. You know, it was a drawing period, draws and wins. I think we had an unbeat. That was at the time where whoever got the most points in the month won the Manager of the Month.
Right.
I think we'd won 2 and drawn 3 or something. But I just decided that it needed changing. So we did, and then he didn't take that well. Sean obviously didn't like it. Stu was all right about it, to be fair. Yeah. You know, Stu just said, you know, I understand it's football, it's results driven. Lee wasn't overly pleased. Yeah. But I seen him here, you know, I speak to him a lot and message him and stuff like that. I think that's just the heat of the moment. Yeah. So yeah, they don't like the change, but you know, you think change is needed. You've got to stand. You've got to make your decision. You've got to stand by it. You know, at any point you can't turn around and say, made the wrong decision there. You know, once you've made it, it's your job to make it right. It's your job to make it work. You know, Paul came in with Bees in October 16, and you know, he wanted every player changing. Yeah. You know, we'd let the 2 previous managers go after 10 games because clearly something was wrong. And you know, after a couple of weeks, Paul came in and said, I want to change every single player except Jamie McCartan. So we did. I think we finished 10th in the first season, in Paul's first full season. Then we got to the Grantham semi-final, which that year we just run out of steam because I think we got to the last 16 of the trophy. I think we played 62 games.
That's my phone. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen.
Fine, massive fine.
Oh yeah. I'll just knock that off. Right,
So yeah, we had 62 games that season, run out of steam, and then of course we carried on, and then but Paul asked to speak to Telford, and Bees came in.
Right, yeah. So is it fair to say that you've probably, even with being at the club like nearly 15 years as chairman, you probably haven't interviewed that many people, have you? You've probably had the conversation like, do you want the job? And that's it.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And you know, if you think, you know, look at, I'll never forget my first game down at, you know, one of my longest friends in football, Jeff Bell, where I'd played for Jeff.
Is he walking across the pitch now?
Yeah, that's him. That's how long
so
he is.
You might be able to see him on the camera. He's just turned up.
That's how long time friend he is.
He looks like he's about to pillage somebody with that stick, doesn't he?
So
my word.
Jeff was club secretary at the time, and I'd just finished at another club, and we'd worked together on some at clubs in the past. And I said, I've got something you might be interested in here. But it was the old March phone call.
Yeah,
you know, they needed someone to come and put a couple of quid in to get them over the line. That's what that was. You learn that years down the line when your March comes and you're trying to get someone to come in. And I never forget, I came in and did the first couple of weeks just as an undercover fan.
Yeah.
And I never forget, my first game was here. It was Harrogate Railway.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember them.
And there was 108
really
on the gate.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what did you get for the playoff final the other day?
2,500. But if you think next season,
yeah.
I said this to someone the other day, that you've got 108 for our first game. There'll be weeks this year, most weeks we're only going to get 1,008.
Yeah.
So it's been a 15-year journey, but you know the numbers speak for themselves, and it's been a tough 15 years, you know, and there's always the decision to make on something, but you know, I think if you don't, and you don't get anywhere, do you?
I can't get get over Belly just turning up as we were talking about him.
There.
Yeah, grafting away on the pitch. Yep. Right, this one, I think you like this one, and I'll end it on that one for you. But I want you as chairman to become manager and build your five-a-side team.
Oh.
And I've not told him this beforehand, so I know he's going to end up upsetting a few people. So
is this out from past players?
Yeah.
Oh, five-a-side team with past players.
Yeah.
Well, keepers, that's an easy one. Tony McMillan.
Yeah.
You know, we've had some great keepers here over the years. You know, Carl Wills, phenomenal. You know, I think I pushed to sign Carl Wills myself. You know, I think I badgered him and went round his house. Badgered him to sign. You know, a fantastic keeper for us, played in the Exeter game. But Tony he just had that little bit. You know, with just that little bit of class, you could tell he'd played from
like streetwise.
Yeah, just massively experienced, and you know, some games just his nous would manage you through matches.
He's like having a manager in goal, isn't he?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I play golf with him a bit, and he's good at that. Yeah. He's just one of them annoying people who's good at things, you know.
I'll go for two centre halves then.
Oh, right, okay.
Probably because it's easier.
Yeah.
Probably Jay McCartan and probably Evan Gums, and that's not because he's been here this season. He's been with us a long time, Evan, and he's come through an unbelievable injury list of bad injuries, you know,
and then backed it up with this.
Yeah, and he came to us on loan initially. I think he was only about 18 the first time he came on loan to us from Tranmere. So he's been here a few times and played, you know, a number of games for us, and to see him develop, and he's been an important part of, you know, of us, you know, our rise up. And Jay's just a great lad. He was here for 9 seasons.
Yeah, great player,
and you know, really good lad. And as far as players go, unbelievably low maintenance. You know, he's just
because there is a lot that can be high, isn't it?
You know, he's
as we know,
just proper workman. Like you know, Jay, every session, every game, just comes in, does the job, goes home. No fuss.
It'd be great to just have a team with them, wouldn't it?
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, probably if we go two in, do we go 2 in the middle and 1 up front, or 1 in the middle?
I like it. I like your style. Yeah.
Midfield probably Ben Garrity probably.
Yeah.
You know, Ben was only here for sort of 2.5 seasons, but he had such a massive impact on us. You know, he dragged us through the Super Playoff season, scored 2 in the semi and 2 in the final.
Yeah.
But just a real commanding player, you know. It's great to go on to see him, you know, play at Port Vale. My other centre mid.
That's a tough one, that.
It's a tough one, that, mate. Yeah, you're trying to think.
Because I know you're going to leave some good ones
out.
I know.
Afterwards, I think I can't believe I can't mention him.
Yeah. You could be getting some texts after Wednesday, I think.
Just trying to think now.
I've got one in my head, but if he doesn't say it...
because it might save me.
Yeah. I thought you might put Bowen. I thought it'd be Bowen.
Yeah, he's been there a while, Bowen, yeah, but then it's difficult because you know, Sean Williams has been here twice.
Yeah.
You know, Sean's been great for the club, but you know,
Jay Harris there as well.
Jay Harris, mate, just absolute, you know, just a leader.
Yeah.
Absolute leader. I might bottle out actually and just go one in the middle and have 2 forwards.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah. You've pumped up all the ties there. To be fair, haven't you?
Yeah. I might do that actually. Probably up front. You know, the first one's got to be. You know, each Kieran Cleaney just been, you know, was great for us.
Yeah.
You know, I always said, you know, at the time, to the people involved at the club at the time, you know, some are no longer with us, but at the time I said this club will never do anything at all until we sign a forward that's going to score us 20, 25 goals a season, because it hadn't historically, and it hadn't had a player of that calibre. And we were fortunate really where we was a really, really horrendous winter, and surely the pitch at the time was awful, and I think we had like frost and snow for something like 5 or 6 weeks, and Chorley hadn't played a home game in 2 months, so they transfer listed the entire squad because they were in that much trouble. And I seen him listed, and he was a couple of thousand, and I thought, need to sign him. Need to go out of our way to sign him, you know, and we did, and he played the rest of the season out. Following season, got 25, you know, and put us where we needed to be.
Superb play.
I think we got lost to Bamber Bridge in the semi-final that season, and then scores 46 in the year we win. You know, we win the league. So he's definitely in because, you know, proper captain, proper leader, and just
proper centre forward,
proper out and out goal scorer, and still speak to him. You know, every now and again he's been great.
Yeah.
Other forward.
Oof.
I'll end up reverting back to midfield in a minute. or throwing a wide player in.
Yeah.
I need a second forward, don't I? We've had some decent forwards here over the years.
Yeah, I've done some top ones. I'm looking at them on the walls and everything, but you think about it. You've got 2 at the minute. You've got 2 top class ones here at the minute. You've had Tony Gray.
Tony Gray was a great player.
You've had some good ones here.
He's just a wily fox, wasn't he? Tony. He was just might actually be Tony. Actually thinking about him, I was looking at other forwards, and I thought, no, Tony's better than him, and because, you know, we had, you know, Ben Deegan, which was a great foil for Kieran that year. You know, they were the 2 forwards. Probably Tony Gray actually. When I look back and think about forwards that we've had, because I'm sort of picking the 5 on sort of on and off the field, you know, not just on it of what they were for the club, and you know, Tony was great with that.
Yeah,
so, probably.
Not, I tell you what, it's good enough to
beat
anyone, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, as you can see, there's a lot going on at the ground at the minute, so I want to say a big thanks to Toby giving up his time today, because I know how busy they are at the moment. Toby, thanks for having me, mate.
Thank you, mate.
Brilliant, thanks.